Wind River is one of those movies you won't forget easily. It is brutal, shocking, and one of the most gripping watches of 2017. If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But beyond the story, the weapons in Wind River tell their own. And one of them raises a question that reframes the entire standoff at the drilling camp. When oil rig security guards in the middle of Wyoming are carrying the exact same assault rifle used by SEAL Team 6, something doesn't add up. The answer has nothing to do with the movie, and everything to do with who actually staffs private security teams in remote locations. 9 firearms, 1 reservation. Let's start with the first firearm. FBI Special Agent Jane Banner carries a Glock 17 as her standard sidearm throughout the movie. The Glock 17 is the world's most produced handgun, with over 5 million units manufactured since its introduction in 1982. It's chambered in 9mm and holds 17 rounds in its standard magazine, though Glock's naming convention refers to the internal patent number, not the capacity. More than 60% of U.S. law enforcement agencies currently issue or authorize the Glock 17, or its compact sibling, the 19. For an FBI agent, it's the expected choice, reliable and proven. What the oil rig security team reached for next was purpose-built for something far more dangerous. Curtis, the team leader, carries the H&K USP as the confrontation with law enforcement spirals out of control. The USP, Universal Self-Loading Pistol, was introduced by Heckler & Koch in 1993. It was specifically engineered to survive the U.S. Army Modular Handgun System trials, which required weapons to function after being buried in mud, submerged in water, and subjected to extreme temperature swings. The USP became the first pistol to be designed from the ground up with a rail for mounting accessories. Now a standard feature on virtually every tactical handgun made since. What makes it notable in Wind River is its deliberate feel. This is a weapon chosen to signal professionalism, not just self-defense. These guards weren't just protecting equipment. That wasn't the only thing they were prepared for, because one of them was carrying something far heavier into that showdown. During the Mexican standoff at the drilling camp, one of the oil rig guards is clearly carrying a Mossberg 590 Mariner, a pump-action 12-gauge with an 8+1 capacity, and Mossberg's corrosion-resistant marine coat finish on every metal surface. The marine coat treatment is a baked-on coating designed to survive saltwater, humidity, and harsh environments, which is why it looks almost silver on screen. The 590 is the only pump-action shotgun to pass the U.S. military's test, which put shotguns through 3,000 rounds of firing and required them to function through sand, water, and temperature extremes. The 590 became the standard military-issue pump shotgun as a result. For a drilling camp security team, it makes complete sense. It handles anything, works in freezing temperatures, and doesn't need pampering. What started as a standoff was about to become a firefight. And when the first shot came through that trailer door, it didn't come from the pump gun. It came from something else, something semi-automatic, and something with a military pedigree that dwarfs the 590. It's Pete, who fires the Benelli M4 Super 90 through his trailer door. And it's a choice that carries weight. The Benelli M4 was designed in the late 1990s at the direct request of the United States Marine Corps, who needed a semi-automatic combat shotgun reliable enough for every environment imaginable. Benelli built a completely new gas operating system called Argo, auto-regulating gas operated, using just 4 parts. 2 self-cleaning stainless steel pistons positioned just ahead of the chamber, directly driving the bolt. The design was so effective that in 1999, The first 20,000 units were delivered to the Marines under the designation M1014 Joint Service Combat Shotgun. The M4 Super 90 is now in service with the U.S. Army, Navy SEALs, and the Los Angeles Police Department, as well as militaries in the UK, Australia, Israel, and Italy. Pete fired first with a weapon trusted by special forces around the world. Someone else in that standoff was drawing a firearm that deserved far more attention. And the weapon itself tells you everything about who this man was. Police Chief Ben Shoyo draws a stainless Smith & Wesson SW1911E series for a reservation police chief facing down a private security team on leased land. It's not an obvious choice, and that's exactly why it matters. The pistol was launched in 2011 as Smith & Wesson's premium 1911 line. Full-length stainless frame, fish scale checkering on the slide, figured walnut grips with a distinctive E stamped into the center, and a refined internal mechanism with an oversized external extractor for reliable ejection. Smith & Wesson forges its own frames, slides, and internal components in-house, one of the few manufacturers that does, and a significant proportion of forged 1911 components on the market begin as raw material in S&W's foundry before being finished elsewhere. But Lambert wasn't watching from the standoff. He was somewhere else entirely, doing the job he was hired for. And the rifle he carried for that job tells a different story. Corey Lambert carries a Remington Model 700 strapped to his back, wrapped in white camouflage tape to blend into the snow. The white wrap obscures the precise variant, but the profile, the bolt action, the muzzle brake, the telescopic sight is unmistakable. The Remington 700 has been in continuous production since 1962, making it one of the longest-lived bolt-action rifles in American commercial history. The U.S. Army adopted it as the M24 sniper weapon system in 1988, and the U.S. Marine Corps had already been using a variant, the M40, since 1966. In Wind River, it isn't a military rifle. It's a working tool, carried by a man of integrity who has made peace with the cold. Later, the rifle becomes something else entirely. But Lambert wasn't relying on his rifle alone. On his hip, he carried something that hints at a very different set of priorities and tells you more about this man than almost anything else in the movie. Corey Lambert carries a stainless steel Ruger Super Blackhawk throughout Wind River. It's a single-action revolver, old-fashioned, deliberate, and conspicuously at home in the Wyoming wilderness. The Super Blackhawk was introduced in 1959 as a beefed-up version of the standard Blackhawk, specifically designed to handle the recoil of the .44 Magnum. The grip frame is steel rather than aluminum. The unfluted cylinder adds mass to reduce felt recoil, and the squared-off trigger guard was designed to protect the shooter's knuckles when the gun kicks. According to Ruger lore, Bill Ruger first learned the .44 Magnum was coming by acquiring spent cartridge cases from a scrapyard and working backward to understand what Smith & Wesson was developing, so he could be ready at the same time. The Super Blackhawk is capable of handling hand loads exceeding 1,200 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, more than any double-action .44 Magnum revolver. In bear country, out in the snow, with no backup, you carry what will stop what's coming at you. Lambert knew what was out there, but the men at the drilling camp knew something too, and what they were carrying tells you exactly what kind of operation this really was. One of the oil rig guards fires an HK-416D fitted with an EOTech sight during the climactic gunfight. The 416D, the D standing for Delta, as in Delta Force, the U.S. Army's most elite special operations unit, was developed in the early 2000s at Delta's request. Their M4 carbines were failing under the strain of suppressed fire and high round counts in close-quarters combat. Heckler & Koch adapted the short-stroke gas piston system from their G36 rifle, replacing the M4's direct impingement mechanism, dramatically reducing heat and fouling in the bolt carrier group. Delta Force replaced their M4s with the 416 in 2005. And then, in 2011, SEAL Team 6 carried the it on Operation Neptune Spear, the raid that killed Osama bin Laden. It is, without question, one of the most capable and battle-proven rifles on the planet. The oil rig security team in Wind River didn't carry it because they were protecting drilling equipment. They carried it because of who they were. Private oil and gas security teams at remote sites recruit heavily from military special operations backgrounds. Contractor companies supply security personnel to energy infrastructure across the country. These men bring their training and their hardware with them. The tribal police in Wind River didn't walk into a standoff with armed civilians. They walked into a standoff with what were effectively ex-Special Forces operators on private leased land where jurisdiction was already contested. And Lambert observed it from a distance, using a weapon that couldn't be more different from an HK-416, or more perfectly chosen for the man holding it. The lever-action rifle that Corey Lambert carries into the drilling camp during the final confrontation is the Marlin Model 1895 SBL, chambered in .45-70 Government, a cartridge that has been in continuous service since 1873. The 1895 SBL is built on stainless steel throughout, with a polished finish, gray laminate stock, a tritium front sight for low-light use, and an oversized lever loop designed to be worked while wearing heavy winter gloves. It holds 6 rounds of .45-70 in a tubular magazine. The .45-70 round was introduced to replace the Springfield trapdoor rifle's black powder loads, and in modern plus P loadings, it generates enough energy to stop a grizzly bear at close range, which is exactly why a fish and wildlife agent working alone in Wyoming would carry one. Lambert uses the 1895 SBL to clear the drilling camp's trailers at long range, and the way the movie frames it, a lever gun against men with HK-416s, tells you everything about what this confrontation means. It isn't about firepower. It's about the land and who belongs on it. If you want to see more weapon analysis like this next video covers another Sheridan-written movie, Sicario, and its gun choices are deliberate and unforgiving.